Welcome back, everybody. Welcome. Do we have one? There we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the main stage, Great Smoke 2025. We are live in person. We're live streaming on YouTube and Facebook, so make sure if you're following along, you share it, you like it, and you comment. I am sitting with Mr. Michael Knowles. Let's give it up for Mr. Michael Knowles. Michael, I enjoy watching you on television. I enjoy your perspective. I can also tell that you really have a very deep-rooted passion for clearly literature, philosophy. You strike me as an old soul. Like you definitely wore a suit in elementary school, right? Like for sure, were you that kid? Like definitely. You studied acting at Stella Adler, which isn't exactly, regular theater. I mean, this is serious character study theater. And so you strike me as someone that is really has great reverence for tradition. And I think it's important to bring you up to speed that our industry also has a tradition, and that is that most celebrity cigar projects go directly into the ashtray of history. And so you have come up with a cigar brand, Mayflower. And before we even get into you or what you do, I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about this project, talk about this cigar specifically, and then talk a little bit about how it has been to go from passionate consumer to now brand owner.
Yes, you're so right when you say celebrity cigars usually are not very good and they don't go very well and they disappear quickly. So I'm hoping that part of the reason that Mayflower has been successful is I'm just not that big a celebrity. So maybe that's my luck, is had I been really famous, then it might not have worked. But before I was working in politics, before I was working in media, I loved cigars. When I was 15 years old, I had my first cigar down in southern New Jersey on the Jersey Shore, and it was there
we got some Jersey people here. Where are the Jersey
fans.
people? All right. Let's give it up for New Jersey.
I don't want to give out too much information, but I remember learning when I was a teenager that I was in fact conceived on the Jersey Shore, as were many of us, many such cases. I was down there once for a family vacation. A family friend gave me a cigar and a bottle of port. And I never liked cigarettes. My mother smoked about 1,000 cigarettes a day. But I said, I'll try this cigar. That's a different kind of thing. And I loved it. I immediately loved it. The next year for Christmas, my mother bought me a box of cigars, and she said, what do you want? And I said, I really liked the Oliva Serie O. I'd like a box of that. Great smoke, the Robusto format. And so she gave them to me, and sadly, my mother died not long afterward. And I still had half this box of cigars. And I said, well, I got to save it. It's a very special box to me. I ended up going to college. I wrote my college admissions essay about how much I loved cigars. I called it The Count of Monte Cristo, a little play on words. And when I got to college, I didn't really have any money, so I started a cigar club, the Society for Intellectual Growth and Reinvigoration, cigar. I fooled the administration. They paid for my cigars. And after I got out of college, I wrote a cigar review of one of Nick Melillo's cigars. And
wait, where's Nick Melillo? Is he here?
There he is.
Big shout out. There you go, Nick. Round of applause for Nick.
So I was sitting in LA, and Tabernacle, I guess, had come out. I was smoking. I said, this is great. I wrote a review. I sent it into Daily Wire. These are friends of mine. I was already working there a bit. And they didn't run it, but they said, this guy has something to say.
You submitted a cigar review to the Daily Wire. Like most people have a blog, take a photo. You said, no, I think I will submit this for national
Yeah. I said,
consumption.
you should run my cigar review. Now, they didn't run it. They didn't have a cigar column. But that actually convinced them to give me a show. So I was telling Nick this earlier. Oddly enough, his cigar in particular, but cigars generally, got me my show. Cigars have played a big role in my life. In fact, when I was a kid growing up, 15, 16, smoking cigars, we would go grocery shopping in the Bronx on Arthur Avenue. And I know that my friends from La Casa Grande are over here.
And Paulie's here too. Where's Paulie?
That's right. Yeah. And so I would go as a kid, and they'd have the guys rolling. I was not legally able to buy the cigars, so some of the guys would just give me cigars. And so it was just a big, big part of my life. And I said, I've had this dream, I want to have a cigar company. So I get to Daily Wire, and I said, I'd like to start a cigar company. They said, well, we don't really do that yet, whatever. Now, though I look Italian and am half Italian, on my father's side, they come from the Mayflower. So I said, I like this idea. I want it to be patriotic, and I like the idea of the Mayflower. Because Mayflower, it's traditional, it's patriotic, but it's not like, guns, shotguns, and monster truck cigars. It's a little more nuanced. A little
more graceful, yeah.
A little more graceful. And so I like that idea, and I kind of knew what I wanted it to be. So anyway, to make a long story short, we were talking about doing a cigar. I was trying a bunch of samples from different people. They were terrible. And I told Daily Wire, I said, if the cigar is not going to be excellent, don't do it. It's not worth it. We make our money in media. We don't need the cigar company. That's not the primary way we make money. And I said, I want to put my name on it. I love this so much. I want it to be really good. And I had wanted to work with Oliva because of this connection with my first cigar box, my mother. Anyway, long story short, I was doing a talk show. One of the guys in the green room comes up. He says, Michael, I got to get you one of my white labeled cigars. It's from Oliva. I said, no way, and he makes the connection. Serendipitously, it all comes together. There's no way you could have planned it. And we came out with a product that I think is really excellent. And I waste a lot of Daily Wire's time when they're paying me to write and do podcasts. I waste a lot of their time on my cigar company. And I hope that's why the cigar company has been very successful, and I hope it's successful for many more years.
Have you had an opportunity to go to the factory? Have you been to Nicaragua?
Funny you asked that. I was supposed to get down there. I was planning to get down there. And there was a little bit of an issue with my visa.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know if it's because I'm conservative, I'm Catholic, a journalist, I don't know, something got, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get down there soon. But I was stymied the first time I tried to go.
It's a spectacular opportunity to go and see it. So then what did that process look like? I mean, you're not a cigar maker, you're an avid cigar consumer, you had an idea of something that you wanted. How did you engage to work through blends to really find what that thing was?
I don't know anything about cigars other than what I like to smoke. That's all I know. And so I did know kind of what sorts of tobaccos I wanted to use. I knew what sorts of blends I wanted, even with the Mayflower name. There's a famous painting, actually not that famous, but it's a painting in the Plymouth Museum where it's the Mayflower in Plymouth Harbor, and the sky is orange, and you don't know, is it dawn or is it dusk? And I said, I really like this. Is the sun rising on America? Is the sun setting on America? We don't know. We never know. And so I said, I like the idea of a Mayflower Dawn. That's the Connecticut. Smoke that in the morning. And then the Mayflower Dusk, that's my evening cigar. So I knew I wanted a Connecticut. I knew I wanted a Habano natural cigar. And then we were playing with the blends a little bit. So for the Dusk, we landed Ecuador Habano wrapper, Sumatra binder, a little bit unusual, gives you unexpected, Nicaraguan filler. And then for the Connecticut, the Dawn, we have Connecticut wrapper, Cameroon binder, Nicaraguan filler. Also a little, it's not totally mild, it's a little below medium. And I said, okay, I know what I like, I know what I want to taste. I'm not a roller, I'm not a blender, I'm not a grower. I didn't grow up on the farms, my grandpa didn't come from Cuba. So what do I bring to the industry? And I thought, well, the one thing I can bring is a kind of experience. A lot of people I know listen to the shows. They'll say, Michael, you've convinced me that I should try cigars, but I don't know the first thing about it, and I'm too intimidated. I go into a lounge, all the guys are looking at me funny, I feel like I'm an idiot, I don't know what to pick. And so I thought, okay, well, I can help guide you into what you want. Wives will say, I want to buy my husband a cigar, but it's too intimidating. So I thought, okay, it's about an experience. This is what I love about this kind of an event. It's what I love about the shops, is we launched online, obviously. I have a big online platform, it's a media company. But I said, I want to be in the shops. Abe was kind enough to take us into his very successful shops. I said, I want to be in the shops because the cigar culture is about being in person. It's about sitting with someone for an hour. It's about a real conversation. It's going to disappear. It's ephemeral, as are all things in this material world. And so I want to cultivate that experience, which means you're new to cigars, try the Dawn, now try the Dusk. We then partnered with a great clothing company called Shepherd's. It's owned in part by Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I had a smoking jacket from when I was a teenager. My godmother got it for me.
Of course you had a smoking jacket as a teenager. Shocking.
This is a great smoking jacket, and I really like it. They're functional, you know, they keep the ash off, whatever. And so I partnered up with this company, and we said, let's make a smoking jacket. I took out basically all of my margin on it, because really good velvet is very expensive. And I said, we're going to do bespoke smoking jackets, Mayflower, very particular, limited run, but you're never going to get quality like this for anywhere near the price. Why did I do that? Am I a clothing maker? No. But I said, this is part of the experience. Same thing with the accessories, the cutters. I want it to be the specific kind of cutter I use. I'll recommend it to you. And so that's, I think, what Mayflower is bringing, is cultivating an experience. Cigars, not just as a great commodity, but as a kind of way of life, to force you to sit, to think, to have a great conversation, to go into a shop, to be part of a community. That's what we're after, and that's why we're so excited now to be into retail.
Let's go away from cigars for just a moment. What I enjoy about you so much is your willingness to have conversations with people who you don't necessarily share the same opinion with on certain things, but maybe not everything. But I mean, whether it's my Facebook feed, my Apple News feed, we are living in what is being just overwhelmingly described as a divided country. Everything is divided, divided, divided. And it's not just politics. It's, of course, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, but then also Nicaragua versus Dominican cigars. Or is it plume or is it mold? Or, you know, I mean, these constant, if I like dogs, that means that I hate cats. And if I hate cats, then I must, you know, all of this stuff. And I just wonder from your perspective, is there a future where we will be able to get back to being able to disagree on certain things and at the same time still be able to be friends and still sit down and enjoy a cigar together? Does that future exist to you?
It certainly does. And I don't only say it because we're all smoking cigars at a cigar event, but the kind of culture that you get in a cigar lounge is really key to this, actually. Because I had this fear, mild fear, when we launched Mayflower, which is, are my politics going to be a problem? Now, I know most cigar smokers are a little bit more to the right, but still, there are plenty of Democrats and liberals who smoke cigars. Michael Jordan said Republicans wear sneakers too. And so I said, is that going to be a problem? And I thought, no. You know, I've been to about 1 billion cigar lounges in my life. When I land, I travel all over to give speeches and things. And before I look up the hotel, before I look up the restaurant, I look up where's the nearest cigar lounge if I have an hour.
Don't we all?
Of course. And I go in, and I would say the cigar culture is about 3/4 conservative, 1/4 liberal. But in my old one lounge I used to go to a lot in LA, it was flipped. It was actually mostly liberal and a little bit conservative. But you know, it's different in a cigar lounge. I always say, cigar Democrats, oh, I can talk to cigar Democrats. That's very different than the kind of purple-haired lady down the street throwing firebombs at you. Totally different, right? And so I said, well, why is that? Well, it's because if you walk into a cigar lounge, you share something in common, you share a love in common, you share a kind of behavior, a kind of mutual respect. And so that's, politically, if you want to zoom out beyond a cigar, that's what one needs to have, is a restoration of the sense of the common good, of a common mission, kinship with your fellow countrymen, and a recognition that reasonable minds can disagree. And that when people come to different conclusions, it is in part because they're maybe pursuing a good, they're just a little mistaken in their first principles. And so if you can begin with that, not with ideology, not with some issue or that issue or whatever, but if you begin with, okay, we're Americans, we have to live together, we're on the same ship, okay, and we're either going to get to our destination or we're going to sink together, then I think you can start to work through some of those problems. But you have to begin with that. You have to begin with the political virtue of love.
Michael, I wish we had more time. It was so great to sit and chat with you. Michael Knowles, Mayflower Cigars. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. And your first great smoke Let's hope it will not be your last. Big round of applause for Michael Knowles, please.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Pleasure to be with you.